When I arrived in Cairo, a year after the fall of Hosni Mubarak, the Islamists had occupied Tahrir Square, highly symbolic. They were celebrating God, freedom and democracy, but also Bin Laden and the blind Sheikh Omar Abdurrahman, the man behind the first World Trade Center attack in 1993. Muslim Brotherhood signs were everywhere. Already with a majority in the assembly, their candidate, Mohamed Morsi, was soon to be elected president of the Republic. But who are the Muslim Brotherhood? Here in Egypt, at the end of the 1920s, they invented political Islam. After the fall of fascism and the failure of communism, do they embody the last universal and totalitarian ideology of the 20th century? They came to power democratically in the wake of the Arab revolutions in 2011 in Egypt, as well as in Tunisia and partially in Morocco. But are they compatible with democracy? To answer these questions, I first had to go back over their history. I have managed to obtain a visit inside their brand new HQ, a unique opportunity. There, I'll meet the main officials of the Guidance Office, the Holy of Holies, comprising 15 members and constituting the Brotherhood's steering committee. I'll meet Mahmoud Ghazlan, the official spokesperson, Mohammed Mahdi Akif, a long-standing official and former supreme guide of the Brotherhood, Mahmoud Hussein and the multimillionaire Khairat al-Shatib, the number 2 and current strongman of the Guidance Office. In Gaza, I'll meet Mahmoud al-Zahar, a leader of Hamas, the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood. And in Tunisia, Rashid Ghannouchi, leader of the Ennahda Party, the Tunisian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. In 1924, the Ottoman Empire disappeared, and along with it the last Islamic Caliphate, the territorial, political and religious structure run by Islamic law that had united the community of Muslims for 14 centuries. The colonial empires finished dividing up its territory. In the place of the Ottoman Caliphate, nation-states emerged whose fate was played out in London and Paris. During the 1920s, Egypt remained under the yoke of the British Empire, which still controlled the Suez Canal, politics and the army. Mahmoud Ghazlan, the official Brotherhood spokesman I met at the Guidance Office in Cairo, explained to me how his movement was born out of the need to break free from Western imperialism. Western ideas had started to invade the Muslim world with religious neutrality, secularism and the loss of moral values and so on, notably in society's upper classes. A gap opened between the lower classes and the elite. All these factors, whether political, social or cultural, prompted a will to rebuild the Muslim countries on an Islamic basis. It was in this context, a dilution of Arab Muslim identity in Western modernity, that a young teacher created the Muslim Brotherhood in 1928. His name was Hassan al-Banna. To find out more about him, I asked Tawfiq Aklimandos, a Franco-Egyptian Islam scholar and probably the leading expert on the Muslim Brotherhood. Hassan al-Banna was born in 1906 into a provincial middle-class family from the Delta. Hassan al-Banna was a watchmaker, a man who both greatly admired and criticized Sufism. He was also a Salafist, or a partisan of the Salafist method. The Salafists drew inspiration from the integrity and lifestyle of the Salafis, the Prophet Muhammad's first disciples. They believe in a fundamentalist reading of the Quran. In a political framework, their method is as follows. From one single individual, they believe the whole of society can be influenced. Al-Banna advocated that as society was not entirely Muslim, the Sharia must be reapplied. First, Muslim individuals must be reformed and be reminded that they must learn to fight for the central values of their society, values that are all Islamic and form Islam. Having reformed the individual, the family is next. After the family comes society. After society, the state, then the planet. The ambition was there from the start. Thanks to its proselytism, preaching, setting up schools, assistance organizations and sporting associations, the Brotherhood developed rapidly in the Arab world. 10 years after its creation, it had 2 million believers in Egypt, twice the population of Cairo at the time. The Imam al-Banna wanted to make people understand the reality of Islam and preached to that effect. And from there, even though he was just one man and Egypt had 4,000 villages, he personally preached in 2,000 of them. He sometimes traveled on foot, or by train, or by mule. He addressed the people, educated them, and when night came, he slept in mosques. The development of the Muslim Brotherhood, as described by Mahmoud Ghazlan, is probably mythified, a legendary tale, in almost Quranic form, and of which Hassan al-Banna was to be the new prophet. His example prompted his disciples, the members of the Muslim Brotherhood, to disperse from Aswan to Alexandria throughout Egypt. Their words then spread to Sudan, towards the east, and to Libya, before propagating to the rest of the world one generation later, to the extent that the brothers are now present in 70 to 80 countries worldwide. To restore the territorial, political and religious structure of the Caliphate was Hassan al-Banna's plan before conquering the world. But within this structure, what kind of society does he propose? The answer lies in his 50-point manifesto, published in 1936, the Brotherhood's political program. In it, he outlines a new totalitarianism, a theocracy governed by Islamic law, the Sharia. Its key words are forbid, oversee, and punish. It bans all gender mixing in society and imposes a moral police controlled by a single party, al-Banna's party, the Muslim Brotherhood's party. Intrigued by the personality of the Brotherhood's founder, I wanted to find out more, so I turned to a man who knew him well, his brother, Gamal. I met him in his library in Cairo. What he tells me about educating the masses strongly resembles the indoctrination methods of the 20th century revolutionary ideologies. Hassan al-Banna, may Allah bless him, was my older brother. We shared strong yet strange bond, as my ideas were not always aligned with those of the Muslim Brotherhood. But my brother Hassan was open-minded and accepted me as I was, with my reservations which concerned in particular women, freedom and art. Right from the start, the Brotherhood's mission focused on education. Its motto was, Islam as a way of life. This meant that for Hassan al-Banna, Islam is not just a belief or idea. It concerns all aspects of life which must be organized by Islam. But is Islam the sole source of Muslim Brotherhood ideology? Not entirely. The Brotherhood is also a product of its era. Fascism, and in particular Nazism, influenced the first generation of the Muslim Brotherhood, as historian Ladan Bouromand explains. Nazi propaganda shaped people's minds and had a strong influence on them. In Muslim countries, Jews were never considered powerful, sly, or conspiring. The notion of conspiracy or hidden power-seeking world control comes from Nazi propaganda. The ties between the Mufti and the Nazis and his meeting with Hitler are proof of sustained ideological relations, which unfortunately persist in the Middle East without people realizing where they come from. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Muhammad Amin al-Husseini, who was close to Hassan al-Banna, joined Hitler in Berlin in 1941. Having created Bosnian Muslim SS divisions at the end of World War II, he urged Germany to pursue the genocide of Jews as far as Palestine. After the war, the influence of communism replaced that of Nazism. In the 1930s, the Muslim Brotherhood, even in their structure and blind obedience to their leader, were fascists. Their system and structure was fascist. After World War II, with the fall of Nazism and the rise of communism among the Allies, and with communist propaganda, young people were very attracted to this revolutionary, liberating and anti-colonialist ideology. Islamism afforded the opportunity to become communist without becoming atheist. In Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood's short-term objective to topple King Farouk, who was perceived as a puppet of the West. His corruption and lavish lifestyle disgusted the Muslim Brotherhood. They constituted clandestine paramilitary groups ready to fight. Aware of the threat, the Egyptian monarch outlawed the Brotherhood. In retaliation, the Brotherhood assassinated the king's prime minister. Cairo, January the 1st, 1949.
Prime Minister was shot by a fanatical assassin, a student who felt that the ruler had given away the Sudan and Palestine and had dissolved the extremist Muslim Brotherhood, and therefore deserved to die.
A few months later, on February the 12th, 1949, the founder of the Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna, was killed by the regime's secret police. The death of their leader could have signaled the end of the Brotherhood, but a new player arrived on the scene, placing the Brotherhood back in the limelight. He was an Egyptian army officer, Lieutenant Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser. Gamal Abdel Nasser carried out his putsch with the support of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he was a member of the Brotherhood. Leading a rebellious military group, the Free Officers, supported by the Brotherhood, Nasser toppled King Farouk and seized power in 1952. The fight against Western intrusion began. It ended 4 years later with the nationalization of the Suez Canal. British influence in Egypt was no more. Symbolizing the sacred union, the third anniversary of the death of Hassan al-Banna united all the forces around his tomb. Hassan al-Hudaybi, Supreme Guide of the Muslim Brotherhood. Anwar al-Sadat, Lieutenant Colonel, Free Officers. Muhammad Amin al-Husseini, Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Gamal Abdel Nasser, Lieutenant Colonel, Free Officers. Nasser integrated the Muslim Brotherhood into the post-coup revolutionary authority. He also poached its leaders to weaken the Islamist organization. Mohammed Mahdi Akif was one of those leaders. One of the last major witnesses of the era and Supreme Guide until 2010, this eminent member of the steering committee agreed to meet me at his home in a residential suburb of Cairo. When Abdel Nasser created his political party, he invited me to be a founding member. I refused, as I belonged to the Muslim Brotherhood and already had a lot of work for them. I don't think he appreciated the way I spoke to him. And how can I put it? He put me under observation. The Revolutionary Command Council was half made up of Muslim brothers. But after a while, a power struggle arose among them, and their relations soured. Misunderstanding between the army and the Brotherhood came to a head, as Nasser traded the Islamic Caliphate plans for Arab nationalism. He may have been a Muslim brother, but he was first and foremost a military man. He aimed to make Egypt the greatest regional power, a modern nation-state integrating Western secularism. In 1953, we really wanted to collaborate honestly with the Muslim Brotherhood so that they might travel the right path. I met the Supreme Guide of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he set out his demands. What were they? He said, first you must impose the veil in Egypt, and you must order all women not to go out in the street without it. All women who go out, let him wear it himself. And I said to him, I believe that people are free to make their own choices. He replied, no, you should decide as a responsible leader. I answered, you have a daughter at the Faculty of Medicine, and she doesn't wear the veil. Why don't you make her wear it? If you can't make one girl wear the veil, your own daughter, how do you want me to make 10 million Egyptian women wear it? The Brotherhood felt betrayed. The conflict between us and Nasser lasted until the so-called Abdel Nasser assassination attempt in Alexandria in the month of October. On October 26, 1954, in Alexandria, while he was giving a radio broadcast speech, Nasser was the target of an attack led by the Brotherhood. It was all staged by Nasser. It was the perfect opportunity for him to get rid of the Brotherhood and exclude them from the political scene, so he could implement his dictatorial reign. The brothers deny ordering the attack and claimed it was staged by Nasser's police to provide a pretext for clamping down. Nasser's men who gave evidence say it was a genuine attack. I think, and I have excellent reasons for doing so, and I'm confident in saying that the attack was organized and ordered by the Brotherhood. Gamal Abdel Nasser is among you. I'm not afraid. I am here for you, for your freedom. So he staged the whole affair in which he was unharmed and set about persecuting the Brotherhood, executing 6 of their leaders. Several dozen of them succumbed to torture in prison. Thousands were imprisoned. Nasser ordered the dissolution of the Brotherhood and seized all its assets so it would cease to exist under his reign. Demonstrators set fire to the Muslim Brotherhood HQ in Cairo following the failed attack against Colonel Nasser, of which the main perpetrator, Mahmoud Abdel Latif, had been arrested. Many other members of the secret Muslim Brotherhood Society. In the days after the attack, 500 Muslim brothers were arrested and imprisoned. Among them was the Brotherhood's leading intellectual, Said Qutb. Since I started my investigation, I've heard his name everywhere, a name with sulphurous overtones. This Islamist writer's works were still banned under Mubarak. He was a literary critic who rose to prominence by his brilliant writing and enlightened essays. He came from the Egyptian liberal trend, secular even. At one point in the 1940s, he took a stance on all sorts of societal issues. And little by little, he became increasingly receptive to the message that society's ills could be cured by Islam. His ideas gradually became Islamized. Then he went to the US. In 1948, Said Qutb went to study at a Colorado university. He stayed nearly 2 years. Scandalized by the Western lifestyle, by individualism and the indecency of American women, he delved into Islamic texts. When he returned to Egypt, Qutb joined the Muslim Brotherhood and rapidly became their leading intellectual. He radicalized the ideas of founder Hassan al-Banna and legitimized the offensive jihad to impose the reign of Islam. The Libyan, Nu'man bin Uthman, is a former Al-Qaeda member who was close to bin Laden in Afghanistan. After the 9/11 attacks, he left the jihadist organization and took refuge in London.
C'est la première fois que quelqu'un a fait le lien entre le djihad et l'essence même de l'islam. Si vous lisez Saïd Qutb dans son intégralité, ce que j'ai fait, vous verrez que l'islam, que ce soit au niveau théorique ou théologique, ne peut exister sans le djihad, c'est-à-dire la guerre physique.
Said Qutb's interpretation, and it was highly contested by many law scholars, being a very singular interpretation of the Quran, was that one must accept that the offensive jihad was legitimate, that mankind would be miserable until the law of God was applied, and that the offensive jihad was valid so long as places on earth existed where the Sharia was not applied. In the process, people were being attacked, but freed. It was a liberation, an elimination of tyrants. And for him, the offensive jihad was the hard and fast rule until the Sharia reigned over the world.
Il faut d'abord créer des avant-gardes, c'est-à-dire des groupes comme Al-Qaïda ou d'autres. Puis le djihad se positionne comme pouvoir révolutionnaire, qui va changer les sociétés, créer des États islamiques, établir des califats islamiques, pour finalement conquérir le monde entier.
Could Said Qutb be the inspiration behind terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda? According to Ben Uthman, most definitely.
Saïd Qutb a influencé beaucoup d'individus d'Al-Qaïda. Ils ne l'ont pas tous rencontré, mais ses enseignements, ses conférences, ses interprétations Ces concepts ont eu une immense portée. Alors oui, ce groupe a été très, très influencé par Saïd Qutb.
In 1965, to silence Qutb, Nasser had him and his partisans imprisoned. They were all tortured. Qutb, who had just served 10 years of forced labor, had only just been released. A power struggle ensued between the two men, with a perhaps unexpected winner. With carrot and stick, the Rais tried to win round the Brotherhood's intellectual. He offered him the post of Minister of Education, but Qutb refused, which created a standstill. To break it, Nasser accused him of plotting a coup and dragged him before a military tribunal. Following a parody of a trial, Qutb was sentenced to death, but that was not the end of the story. The Rais knew that the Brotherhood's leading man could be more powerful dead than alive. So he gave him one last escape route. When, shortly before his execution, Qutb's sister visited him in his cell, she assured him that if he appealed, his life would be spared. "My words will carry more weight if I die," Qutb replied. Nasser had no choice but to have him executed. They ordered him to draft a request for mercy. Qutb replied, "This index finger, the finger that bears witness to God's uniqueness, will never write one word asking grace from a sinful leader. Either I will be condemned justly and I will accept the sentence, or I will be condemned unjustly and it will be impossible for me to ask grace from a tyrant." So the death sentence was executed. May God have mercy on him. Said Qutb was hanged on August 29, 1966, after the publication of his book, Signposts on the Road. In it, he declared the superiority of Muslim civilization in comparison to the West, and the need for Islam to reign over the whole of mankind. "Islam has the duty to make God's reign over the universe respected," he wrote. "This reign can only be valid under an Islamic regime established by God for all mankind, without exception." Muhammad Mehdi Akif, who knew Said Qutb well, as he was his disciple, still claims to follow Qutb's example today. Glory to God, Said Qutb died a martyr with his God, oppressed for writing signposts on the road, which is a very fine work, with nothing reprehensible in it. The book was published and sold in all bookshops in Egypt. But immediately after it was published, the book was banned, and Said Qutb was condemned to death. May God rank him among the just. Yes, Said Qutb was a great man. People love him, and his books have been translated into all languages. Thanks to God. When he died a martyr, a death he himself wanted, demonstrations broke out all over the Muslim world to protest against the Rais and to keep Said Qutb's revolutionary ideas alive. Ideas that were still predominant in the Brotherhood and that were to inspire all Islamist terrorism groups. I now understand how the Brotherhood was born in Egypt, and how it took root in opposing British colonialism, King Farouk, and then Nasser. I remembered what Roslan had told me. How did the Brotherhood manage to expand so quickly to nearly 80 countries? The Palestinian question both drove and cemented expansion of the Muslim Brotherhood. It enabled political Islam to unite the most radical Sunni and Shiite groups around one and the same ideology. In 1953, after having fought in the First Arab-Israel War, the Muslim Brotherhood organized an Islamic Congress in Jerusalem, which brought together all the political Islam trends against the existence of the Hebrew state. Among the guests was the founder of the Fedayeen of Islam, which was a violent organization of Shiite persuasion that was founded following World War II in Iran by a tiny minority of activists who wanted an Islamic government. I think he was invited by the Muslim Brothers. His name was Nawab Safavi. It's curious that the anti-Semitism of the modern Islamist movements still has a German root, if I may say so. And Nawab Safavi attended German secular technical schools in Iran during the war years. An Iranian intellectual now in exile, Ramin Parham, remembers Safavi's role during the 1953 conference. He stood before the Arab and Muslim Assembly and turned the issue upside down by making the Palestinian question into not a national Arab issue, but an Islamic issue. From then on, it concerned the entire Muslim community. It was a new discourse. What he did was really quite extraordinary. He Islamized the discourse. From then on, the Israeli issue was not just a neighbor issue. It was sacrilege, for the entire region was considered Islamic. Israel could only be perceived as a foreign body, an obstacle to accomplishing the Brotherhood's plan of restoring the Caliphate. In 1954, a year after the Jerusalem Conference, Safavi was invited to Cairo by the Muslim Brothers. We invited Nawab Safavi, the leader of the Fedayeen of Islam. At the time, the Brotherhood sought to forge ties with other Islam groups. Unlike the Sunnis, the Iranian Shiites only recognized descendants of his cousin Ali as the Prophet's successor. Despite this theological antagonism, the Fedayeen of Islam and the Muslim Brotherhood shared the same ideology and blended their organizations. The Fedayeen of Islam were now called in Iran Akhwan al-Muslimin, the Muslim Brothers. Back in Iran, Safavi tried to have the Shah's Prime Minister assassinated. He was arrested and executed in 1955. But the clandestine group he had created survived. A few years later, his partisans found a new leader in the Ayatollah Khomeini. It was the first time that someone with Ayatollah status, who had a traditional religious legitimacy, established contact and collaboration with people who were considered to be dangerous eccentrics by the whole Shiite clergy, the Fedayeen of Islam. And from then on, it was the start, stage by stage, of the features that would lead to the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Islamic Republic will be our final victory. The Islamic Republic will be our final victory. Beware the day Khomeini orders me to wage holy war. That day, neither guns nor cannons will stop me. Beware the day Khomeini orders me to wage holy war. That day, neither guns nor cannons will stop me. The Fedayeen of Islam had a major influence on the Ayatollah Khomeini. And, with the Islamic Revolution in 1979, the ideas of the Brotherhood came to power. With those of Said Qutb on the front line. His writings had a major influence because in the tradition of Shiite religious thinking, there was no category enabling a confrontation with modern ideologies. Politics was not part of theology. So in the 1970s, they all started to translate Qutb's works. What Sayyid Qutb said with his new discourse was that the Eastern Arab Muslim world was not behind compared to the Judeo-Christian West, but that the West was behind the Eastern Arab Muslim world, and so the West had to catch up, which solved a lot of problems. What was the Muslim Brotherhood's electoral slogan? Islam is the solution. In Khomeini's speeches, Western modernity adopted by the Shah of Iran produced only anarchism and decadence, whereas only Islam could bring the true progress of civilization. An interpretation of Sayyid Qutb's theory to the letter. We want to repair the ruin brought about by the Shah. Through his actions, the country has regressed in all areas, and we must reform that. Instead of the Shah, we want to establish a state of Islamic justice. Qutb had a huge intellectual influence on the generation of Islamists who took part in the Islamic Revolution in Iran. And what's more, as soon as they took power, one of their first reflexes was to create a postage stamp bearing the effigy of Sayyid Qutb in Iran. We've seen how the Brotherhood was at the root of the Islamic Revolution in Iran. In return, how would the revolution impact the whole of the region, dominated by a Sunni Islam? I was soon to understand. As shown on this stamp by the effigy of Anwar Sadat's murderer, also printed by Iran, without the Islamic Revolution, the Egyptian president would not have been assassinated. On 6 October 1981, 2 years after the Iranian Revolution, when Sadat, who succeeded Nasser 10 years earlier, was attending a military parade, 4 Islamists who had infiltrated the army opened fire on the presidential stand, shouting, "Death to the Pharaoh." The attack killed 7, including the Egyptian president. The Islamists reproached Anwar Sadat for signing the peace treaty in 1979 with Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin in front of the White House. By signing peace with Israel, Sadat signed his own death warrant. The Brotherhood demanded the head of the traitor. Mahmoud Hussein, another member of the guidance office whom I interviewed at the Brotherhood's HQ, explained to me that the Muslim brothers felt betrayed by Sadat, who had nevertheless favored them at the start of his reign. With the rise of Egyptian opposition, whether the brothers or other Egyptian movements opposed to the treaty, Sadat started to change his policies. The brothers rejected the treaty, and they made it known. Officially, the Brotherhood renounced violence, so it was the new organizations, now called Salafists, born among them in the mid-1970s, that took charge of assassinating the Egyptian president. The result was that a group from the Gamal Islamiyah and Al-Jihad executed Sadat. Of course, the Muslim Brotherhood absolutely did not take part in the operation, as most of our officials were in prison or abroad. The leader of the Salafist group, the blind Sheikh Omar Abdurrahman, issued a fatwa condemning him to death, while another organization prepared the revolution on the Iranian model. Iran was the inspiration because it had shown that a few determined revolutionaries, bound together by their faith in the political theology of Islam, could take power. As a result, small organizations that were a little more radical and violent came into existence in the fold of the Muslim Brotherhood. But the revolution did not happen. Hosni Mubarak, who formed his government following Sadat's death, carried out widespread arrests among Muslim extremists. Their organizations were destroyed and their leaders imprisoned. The Salafists responsible for the assassination and the attempted coup were taken to court. One question remained. Despite their denial, were the Brotherhood involved in Sadat's assassination? It's hard to know and hard to see clearly through the Islamist cluster they engendered. The leader of Al-Jihad, the organization that perpetrated Sadat's assassination, was called Ayman al-Zawahiri. Broken by torture, he declared himself the spokesman of the defendants. He defied the military power and its Western allies in a threatening and prophetic diatribe. The Real Islamic Front and the Real Islamic Opposition against Zionists. We are here, the Real Islamic Front against Zionist communism and imperialism. Ayman al-Zawahiri, the man who after bin Laden's death in May 2011 became the Al-Qaeda #1. And we are still ready for more sacrifices until the victory of Islam. I know Ayman al-Zawahiri personally. When we joined the Brotherhood as students, he would come and pray with us at the mosque. He was an extremely polite student from a well-known family. He had an entirely innocent character. I'd never have imagined him carrying a weapon or being violent. I was surprised to see him at the Sadat trial. After his release and his trip to Afghanistan, I found out he'd become a leader of Al-Qaeda. I was really amazed. Could the figure of Ayman al-Zawahiri be a proof of a more than ideological link between the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda? To find out more, I retraced his steps after his release in 1984. After serving just 3 years in prison, his direct involvement could not be proved. Zawahiri went to Afghanistan to take part in the jihad against the USSR. He was welcomed by Abdullah Azzam, an authentic internationalist who organized the stays of Arab fighters in Afghanistan. Azzam was the missing link between the Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda, because this Palestinian, a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, was the real and little-known founder of the jihadist organization. Although the Brotherhood today condemns the 11th September attacks, they still consider Abdullah Azzam as one of their own. Abdullah Azzam is of Palestinian origin, a Palestinian who emigrated to Jordan and who practiced the jihad against the Zionists who had invaded his land. Every man has the right to seek to free his country. Then he went to Afghanistan. Remember that the Soviet Union had invaded a Muslim land. So he went to free the Muslim land of Afghanistan from Russian communist colonization that imposed non-belief by force. So we can't reproach the legitimacy of his actions. Non-believers govern us. People who are afraid and inept are using us. Those people, Jews and Christians, have made off with the destinies of humanity. The Americans, the English, and others. And behind them are the arms of worldwide Zionism with its money, its women and media. By the intervention of Abdullah Azzam, Ayman al-Zawahiri met Osama bin Laden. The three men, who subscribed to the idea of a revolutionary vanguard marking an Islamization of the world, soon created an internationalist organization they called Al-Qaeda. I don't know ultimately if Al-Qaeda was supported by the Muslim Brotherhood, but I have proof that the founders of Al-Qaeda and the ideas its actions are based on come directly from the Brotherhood. But even if the men and their goals are identical, their strategies are different. The Brotherhood follow their own logic on their quest for power, consisting of slow, long-term implantation, legitimizing their leadership among peoples. During the 1980s in Egypt, the Brotherhood gradually rose from its ashes. It was authorized as an association, but it was still forbidden to constitute a political party. Lacking any room for maneuver in Egypt, it developed in many countries of the former caliphate, like Sudan, Tunisia, and Algeria. Its plan was to take power wherever possible in order to conquer the entire Muslim world. In 1989, the Algerian Muslim brothers Abbasi Madani and Ali Belhaj created the ISF, the Islamic Salvation Front, which won the legislative elections in 1991. Their annulment provoked a civil war, which killed nearly 200,000. For us, Islam is the only religion of the state. So in this country, all the laws of the regime must be inspired by the Quran. In Tunisia, a series of bombings and acid attacks against tourist targets were aimed at destabilizing the government between 1986 and 1987. In Nahda, the Tunisian branch of the Brotherhood was suspected of being behind the violence. Its leader, Rachid Ghannouchi, narrowly escaped the death sentence. I traveled to Tunis to meet him. After 20 years in exile, Ghannouchi is today at the heart of the power born of the Spring 2011 revolution. I met him at the new Ennahda headquarters. In 1987, Ghannouchi had to flee Tunisia. He found refuge in Algiers among the ISF before going into exile once again when the civil war started. We had to find another country of residence, so we went to Sudan. Hassan al-Turabi was one of our friends. In the 1970s, the Islamist sphere in Sudan had the most influence over the Tunisian Islamist movement. But I didn't live for more than a month in Sudan. I went to live in England. Taking power in Muslim countries is just one chapter of the Brotherhood's strategy, because to reach their supreme aim, the world caliphate, they also establish themselves in European democracies and are gaining ground there in view of the long-term Islamization of the world. It's a vast task, consisting of long-term positioning to achieve the rebirth of a planet-wide Islamic state, or an Islamic caliphate dominating the planet. It's a very long-term vision. They're pragmatic. They know full well that the Islamic State or caliphate will not unite the Muslim world in 2 or 3 years. But I would point out that the current Supreme Guide, Mohammed Badia, has said that the restoration of the caliphate is nigh. The Brotherhood, which creates footholds in the West via its association networks, quickly gained ground among the Muslim minorities in the US and Europe. The UOIF, the Union of Islamic Organizations of France, created in 1983 and with about 60 dependent associations, organizes an annual event that brings together over 100,000 faithful. 30 years after its creation, the UOIF has become the leading organization representing Muslims in France. Do not look with your eyes. Understand with your hearts. The ears they hear with. When you hear nature, God is speaking. When you hear everything around you, in that relationship. For years, the affiliation between the UOIF and the Muslim Brotherhood was known and accepted. Today, the leaders of the UOIF no longer recognize these ties. But have they ended? Perhaps not. In 2012, the speakers who were invited to the annual conference from various countries were all either Brotherhood members or sympathizers. On account of recent anti-Semitic declarations, one of their main religious references, the Egyptian Muslim brother Yusuf al-Qaradawi, was not allowed to attend. 12 years earlier, in this same UOIF meeting, he came to dictate his political recommendations to Muslims in France. The aim was to weigh heavily to influence French legislation and convert Europe to Islam. There are over 4 million Muslims here. We could have a huge influence during elections. If we don't put forward a Muslim candidate, who will we vote for? We must study the aims of the parties and their political programs. That way, we will know which of their aims are closest to our interests. And I tell you this, if anyone tries to restrict Muslims, it will be a sin to vote for him. Cross-checking several sources, I tried to connect the different representations of the Brotherhood to foreign association networks, distinguishing recognized links from unofficial links, with the guidance office in the center. The diagram I came up with gave me an idea of the network's complexity and density, but how is it articulated? Who fixes the goals and objectives? The Brotherhood has always maintained the greatest secrecy regarding its structure and the nomination of its representatives. Khairat al-Shatir is today the Brotherhood's strongman. A member of the guidance office, this typical multimillionaire embodies the new generation. Considered to be the Brotherhood's candidate in the Egyptian presidential elections, he was invalidated in favor of Mohamed Morsi for having served several prison sentences for activism. When I met him in his former campaign HQ, he affirmed that each branch of the organization abroad is independent. The Muslim Brotherhood's vision is represented in dozens of countries, but there are no organizational links between us, even if we're linked to each other ideologically. There is a common base between us, a global ideological framework, but each group is free to apply it in their own way, in their own country. According to Norman Ben Othman, on the contrary, the organization is highly centralized. During the 10 years he was with Al-Qaeda, he was in touch with several Brotherhood contacts abroad. He claims that no decision or nomination would take place without the green light of the Guidance Office in Egypt, their Politburo.
Ne reconnaissent pas officiellement l'existence de leur organisation au niveau mondial. C'est assez bizarre d'ailleurs. Même en Égypte, ils disent « Non, ça n'existe pas, c'est un fantasme ». Mais nous savons bien sûr que ça existe.
What's more, between 1992 and 1996, while Bin Laden and Zawahiri were living in Sudan, under his protection, the powerful Muslim brother Hassan al-Turabi openly criticized the Egyptian hegemony on the Guidance Office.
Tourabi était contre l'idée du bureau de la guidance situé en Égypte et qui s'occupe de gérer les affaires des frères musulmans dans le monde entier. Il était contre ça. Il ironisait souvent sur le fait que le guide suprême, depuis la mise en place de ce bureau, il y a des dizaines et des dizaines d'années, est égyptien. Il disait « ça n'a aucun sens, pourquoi devrait-il être systématiquement égyptien ?» Imaginez qu'un membre des frères musulmans soit un véritable génie, mais qu'il soit koweïtien. Pourquoi lui refuser cette opportunité ?
I now know the Muslim Brotherhood's origins, their ideology, and the aims they have set, but I'm still wondering what is the source of their longevity, of their expansion, and of their popularity, resulting in their electoral win on June 24th, 2012. The answer may lie in their Cairo dispensaries, the charity network they have set up that has helped them spread their ideology slowly but surely. Because they were the ones to look after the deprived, who were abandoned by King Farouk's corrupt power and then by the army. Attached to a mosque, the Shubra dispensary depends on one of the 500 charity organizations in Cairo, run by the Muslim Brotherhood. Hatem Atiyah, a departmental head of the Brotherhood, is its treasurer. Since it was founded by the Imam Hassan al-Banna, Brotherhood members have come from the villages, from hamlets, and from poor districts. It's via this distribution among the smallest communities that the Brotherhood acquired such popularity before and after the revolution of January 25th, 2011. Atiyah opens the doors of his dispensary for us as an exceptional favor. Television cameras, especially foreign ones, are not allowed to film inside. I understand that right from the start, social aid and charity organizations have been the Brotherhood's main assets. They fulfill a religious obligation called sadaqah, but are also a way to re-Islamize and to clientelize target populations. Charity is an obligation of Islam. I think you could say it's better to be poor in Pakistan than in India, to give a non-Egyptian example. Egyptian society is a very poor one. But so far, people do not starve. They don't starve to death, partly because the association network, the Muslim and Coptic charity network, are highly developed. That's very probably one of their strong points, and it explains their popularity. It's also a strong point of the Salafists. The Mubarak regime had neglected many of its roles. The social roles that successive governments should have played over the last 60 years. Over the last 10 years, Egyptian society could no longer function without charity support. Charities were the main support for Egyptian poor families, who could no longer live without help from the organizations.
Ces dernières ne pouvaient plus vivre sans l'assistance des associations.
The Brotherhood did not confine their influence to Egyptians. From the end of the 1970s, to counter Western humanitarian organizations in the field, the Brotherhood expanded its vocation of assistance by creating a vast international organization. Unlike French doctors and Doctors Without Borders, they focused their actions on the Ummah, the Muslim community. The Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood in the Gulf countries. Listening to certain speeches given by fundraisers, as here by the blind Sheikh Omar Abdurrahman, it would appear some of their association aims are as much political as charitable. The God Lord has demanded the jihad of us. It is one of the obligations we must accomplish. We must penetrate the territories of non-believers to propagate Islam there by preaching. And if there is opposition, the answer is jihad. International Islamic Relief, created by two Egyptian Muslim brothers based in London and financed by Saudi Arabia, was accused of subsidizing terrorism. One expert told me that it would appear the organization took advantage of humanitarian aid supplied to the needy to slip in weapons that were delivered to various jihadist groups, including Al-Qaeda. Officially, the Brotherhood claims to have no links to it, but I ask Mahmoud Hussein all the same. Does Islamic Relief belong to the Brotherhood? No, there is no link between that organization and us. But when I ask Hatem Atiyah, a militant in the field, his answer is very different. Regarding the international organizations, we have Islamic Relief, based in London, and a few other organizations based abroad. It was also via social aid that the Brotherhood gained popularity in Gaza. The Israeli occupation from 1967 to 2005 was very painful for the people of Gaza. For more than 50 years, the Brotherhood established a presence there, helping a poor population to whom they taught hatred of the Jewish state. In 1987, the Palestinian Muslim Brothers, led from Gaza by Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, took the name Hamas, Islamic Resistance. They moved progressively to armed struggle, then terrorism. Mahmoud al-Zahar, one of its leaders, met me at his home in Gaza among armed men, his Praetorian Guard.
Il m'assure que l'occupation israélienne est la seule cause de la violence.
En 1987, nous avons pris le nom de Mouvement de la Résistance Islamique pour combattre l'occupation. Le djihad vient du mot djoud, qui signifie effort. Cela veut dire qu'il faut accomplir un effort pour résister à l'occupation par tous les moyens. Parmi ces moyens, il y a les moyens pacifiques. La preuve, c'est que le Hamas a résisté pacifiquement à l'occupation pendant toute la première intifada, qui a commencé en 1987 et qui a duré jusqu'en 2000. Après cela, le peuple palestinien s'est retrouvé contraint d'utiliser les armes, en raison de l'échec des moyens pacifiques, tels que les marches, les manifestations, les sittings, les grèves. Pour parvenir à son but, le Hamas a pris les armes, sans pour autant qu'on puisse dire qu'il s'agit d'activités militaires.
Il n'empêche que dans les meetings du Hamas, le discours est beaucoup plus cru.
إلى الكلاب الجائعة والوحوش المفترسة ليطعموها فأكلوا أصابعنا. نحن تعلمنا الدرس. لا مكان لكم بيننا ولا مستقبل لكم بين الأمم. إنكم إلى زوال.
Lorsque tu dis que nous entraînons les enfants à la violence et à la haine, cela n'est pas vrai. D'ailleurs, vous aussi, dans les États européens, vous avez ce qu'on appelle l'éducation civique.
What would you like to do to the Jews who killed your father? Kill them.
بدنا احنا نذبحهم يا ترى عشان يطردوا من ارضنا اكيد. ما هو بدنا يعني نطردهم من ارضنا ما هو اذا ما ردوش بالسلام ولا بالكلمه ولا بالحدوته لازم بالشخص. لما نستشهد من روح الجنه لا تقول علينا صار من العيشه زين اكبر من غير فلسطين شو يعني طفوله من غير فلسطين شو يعني طفوله.
It is not just in kids' programs on the Hamas channel that speeches of hatred against Jews are given.
Des discours qui dépassent de loin la bataille territoriale ou la compétition religieuse. Ils sont aussi tenus par les représentants du bureau de la guidance au Caire.
Today, we are engaging in a combat of life and death against the Zionist enemy and America, which is its great support. How to understand this obsession? For the Muslim Brotherhood, the Hebrew state represents the figurehead of the West, but not only with the conspiracy theories and racism and anti-Semitism is a powerful federator there and finds a wide echo among the population. Throughout history, Allah has imposed on Jews men who punish them for their corruption. His methods may have been excessive, but he put them in their place. This was divine punishment for them. Yusuf al-Qaradawi, star preacher of the Qatari TV channel Al Jazeera, said, "We must dispatch the Jews, those sons of apes and pigs, to the hellfire on the wings of Qassam rockets." Safwat Higazi, a preacher of the Brotherhood in Egypt. An extremist would say Islam is fundamentally anti-Jewish. It is not. In the 1920s, anti-Semitism did not exist in Egypt. The Muslim world has often been more hospitable to Jewish populations than the West has been at times. The other extreme is saying that anti-Semitism has not been a constant in Muslim history, that it developed and became radical as the Palestinian question emerged. But when the Palestinian question is settled, anti-Semitism will disappear. That position is also too simplistic. We can date the development of outrageous anti-Semitism back to the 1930s in the Arab world, but it won't disappear. It has acquired a life of its own. In 2007, Hamas won the elections, having got rid of its nationalist enemy brother, Yasser Arafat's Fatah. It took possession of the Gaza Strip. Only the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the other organization stemming from the Brotherhood and financed by Iran, was allowed to stay. Khalid al-Bach, a leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, agreed to meet me in my hotel room in Gaza. He claims to be equally part of the Brotherhood and part of the Islamic Revolution in Iran. He said in this documentary, "First of all, the Islamic Jihad movement constituted the extension of the Muslim Brotherhood movement in Iran after the victory of the Islamic Revolution in the 1970s. Major Islamic development began, stemming from the fact that a state had been conquered, an Islamic state created, driving out colonialism and changing life in Iran. In the mind of Muslim Brother, peace with Israel is not an option. Only a more or less long-term truce can be envisaged." Hassan Balawi, a historian of the National Palestinian Movement, a member of Fatah, and son of the Brotherhood in Palestine, explains that the Brotherhood has a different temporality to ours. They have their own concepts. For Islamists in general, Israel represents a sort of new crusade. The crusade lasted for 200 years, for 2 centuries, and during that time, the Islamist leaders such as Salah ad-Din held truces from time to time. For the Islamists, the notion of time is, why hurry? So we can call a truce, an entente, or peace, call it what you will, during 1, 2, 3, or 50 years ago. 20 years ago, the Soviet Union was a major state. Today, there is no longer a Soviet Union. America is currently a major state. I'm sure that one day, there will be no America. 50 years from now, perhaps sooner, or later. Factors changing, some things are constant, others evolve. The law is constant, the balance of power in states change. 60 years ago, Israel was not Israel. Israel exists today, but I don't know if it will in 20 or 100 years. Khalid al-Bach is right. The balance of power can change at any moment. And the 2011 Arab Spring revolutions clearly modified it. They may have not seen the revolutions coming, but rolling with them, the Muslim Brotherhood were the main beneficiaries. Given their popularity, their probity, and because they were the most organized political force. Benefiting from the people's elections, they grabbed election victory wherever the wind of freedom blew. In Egypt, in Tunisia, and more discreetly in Morocco, which has already introduced clauses of Sharia Islamic law into its legislation. Now that they are in control, what will they do with their power? They have a reputation for being as idealistic as they are pragmatic. Can they evolve on the issue of women, or on freedom of expression, to be better accepted on the international scene? Can they break with the doctrine of their founder, Hassan al-Banna, who advocated the Sharia and a moral police controlled by a single party? In Tunisia, the revolution brought to power a coalition dominated by the Ennahda Muslim Brothers, run by Rashid Ghannouchi. The Brotherhood owes its electoral success there to decades of opposition to the Ben Ali dictatorship. But according to Ghannouchi, their popularity comes above all from their political project to establish the Sharia. Islam represents a federative terrain for all Tunisians. All parties, whether Islamist or secularist, agree that Islam is a national identity for the Tunisian state, Ghannouchi said. Point of view not shared by Amna Manif, a democratic and secular militant. She claims that the Brotherhood have perverted religion by using Islam for political aims. A very serious confusion is made between Islam, and I won't say moderate Islam, as Islam is moderate in its very essence. These Islamizing movements instrumentalize religion for political aims and for objectives of power, and have a vision of power and the state that contradicts not just modernity and the evolution of humanity, but that is also in total opposition to the real values of the Muslim religion. We absolutely do not need them to teach us the real values of our religion. After their electoral successes, the Islamist movements shared the workload, so to speak. The Brotherhood's task was to impose the Sharia via legislative reform. The task of the Salafists, financed by the Gulf countries, was unrest and violence against the freedom of expression, women, intellectuals, and the media. But in fact, what difference is there today between Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafists? There is not a great difference between the doctrines. From the start, we Muslim Brothers have said people must be built on an Islamic basis, but also families and society and the government, Khairat al-Shatir said. According to Mohammed Noor, the spokesman of a Salafist party, the difference is just as small. The Salafist priority is educating members and preaching, which comes before the network and political parties. It is a school of thought, rather than a structure organization. Ultimately, the supreme aim for the Brotherhood, the Salafists, and all Islamic movements is to fulfill Islamist thought worldwide. At the University of Manouba in Tunis, the rector of the university, who is opposed to the wearing of the full veil in his faculty, has been harassed several times amidst indifference from the public authorities. Today, we contest Ennahda on the grounds of reality. We can point out its double standards, and so it is our duty to denounce them, to make them public, and to reveal exactly where they are leading Tunisia, Amna Menif said. In Egypt, in order to perpetuate their power, the Muslim Brotherhood must show the West their credentials and bring back tourists. And so their vocabulary has been reviewed and corrected. Mention of the Islamic Caliphate has been dropped in favor of the United States of the Arabs. Why do we accept your European Union terminology when we could call it the European Caliphate? Today we talk about relations between countries of the same nature that must be compatible with the world we live in, on the same level as the Socialist International, the European Union, ASEAN, G8 or G20. Are they or not groups that share the same worldview? So it is normal that we should group together in the same way when there will be countries that share the same Islamic references, Khairat al-Shatir said. But at election meetings just before Mohamed Morsi became president of the Republic, I noticed the language was less subdued. Allah willing, our dream of United States of the Arabs is coming true. Thanks to Dr. Mohamed Morsi, to his brothers, supporters and party. If the Islamic Caliphate is now being realized, Allah willing, the United States of the Arabs will be restored. Allah willing, the capital will not be Cairo, Mecca, but Jerusalem. Our cry shall be millions of martyrs march towards Jerusalem, Safwat Higazi said.
يلا يا عشاق الشهادة كلكم حماس انسوا العالم كل العالم وانسوا المؤتمرات شيلوا سلاحكم صلوا قيامكم شيلوا سلاحكم صلوا قيامكم وادعوا رب الناس وادعوا رب الناس.
After the Spring Revolutions, Arab countries, like the Brotherhood, are at a crossroads. Will the Muslim Brotherhood pursue their dream of restoring the Caliphate as the ultimate objective of a world Islamic state? Or faced with political realities and economic hardship, will they evolve towards pragmatism and democratic values? The struggle between secularists and Islamists that has surfaced in the new context of dawning democracy has only just begun. Perhaps the secularists will win. As I speak, the Islamists are gaining strength, and it is still too early for predictions. However, at the end of this investigation, my impression of the Brotherhood is like the welcome Mohammed Mahdi Akif gave me, despite his sense of hospitality, not exactly reassuring.
Voyez les frères musulmans en Égypte et hors d'Égypte. Quelqu'un a-t-il réussi à étouffer leur voix? Quelqu'un a-t-il réussi à les vaincre?
Look at the Muslim world, at the populations of the Islamic world. Despite their poverty and pressure from their leaders, they preserve their religion, their beliefs and their values. In the face of America, in the face of the European Union, in the face of the Zionists, and all those who plot against Islam. Thanks to God. Thank you for this encounter. May God help you transmit our message to the whole world. We ask God for you and for us to grant us good health, Mehdi Akif said.